Oh, hello! My name is Mara, and welcome to Books Like Whoa. Today's video is one that I don't know that I would have done if I had not gotten a number of requests for it, and I'm not sure where this is coming from or kind of what the impetus was, but over the last year I have gotten, let's say, 10 different requests to do a video recommending Agatha Christie books based on the season or the time of year. And I can kind of see where maybe this comes from in terms of, I do think that Agatha Christie has a lot of different moods in her books, and I think we have some kind of stereotypes about what kinds of books work best for different times of year. And since we are slowly, please, sneaking into fall here in the Northern Hemisphere, I thought that this would be an appropriate time because I feel like fall is sort of like the time a lot of people are reading horror and mystery and thriller, the time of year that maybe people would be open to trying an Agatha Christie book. So this is my second to last Agatha Christie video for a while, but I did think it was seasonally appropriate and therefore I thought I would slot it in. And that is my recommendations for 3 Agatha Christie books to read in each season. We will start in fall, go to winter, spring, summer. You see how it goes. Winter, spring, summer, or fall. All you've got to do is call and I'll be there. Gilmore Girls, Carole King, anyone? Okay, anyway, so let's just get into it. Like I said, we're gonna start with fall and I'll kind of explain my rationale for my picks, give you some recommendations, and we will keep it punchin'. Okay, so for fall, my kind of thought process on the kind of recommendation I would give is that I think stereotypically in the fall, we start thinking about sort of like spooky reads. I think because of Halloween and the, sort of death of the leaves, and it's just sort of your like typical horror kind of atmosphere, I feel like the fall is. So I was trying to think of 3 books that I would recommend as Agatha Christie's basically like spookiest or most having to do with maybe something Halloween-y related. So on that note, the first and most obvious pick I would recommend for fall for Agatha Christie is Halloween Party. Now this is an Hercule Poirot mystery and it is not one of the better ones in my opinion, but it does center around a children's Halloween party, as in the title, and there's definitely kind of a sense of menace in terms of there's some ambiguity in terms of if this has something to do with maybe like a cult or a serial like sex murderer kind of thing, and the victim is a child. So there is definitely kind of an extra layer of horror or ooky spookiness that I think kind of goes along with this particular one. So I definitely think that this fits sort of a fall or autumnal type theme. I then was thinking, okay, what are the other maybe like 2 spookiest or like most kind of creepy atmosphere Christies that there are? One of them I think is Endless Night, and I just don't like Endless Night, so I can't bring myself to recommend it to you, but just know I do think that one has a lot of sort of kind of menace or like impending dread to it, which would fit kind of an ooky spooky theme, but I went a different way. So first I said, besides Endless Night, I would say Crooked House is a pretty spooky one, and it's just because it's very claustrophobic. It's a bunch of people in a house and none of them know who the killer is. They're all related to each other, so it's one big extended family that's living together, and it's a lot of sort of like profiling of what kind of person would have committed the crime. So I think that makes it maybe a little more kind of atmospheric or a sense of impending doom. I also think the ending of this one is pretty dark, so I thought that this could be kind of, besides Endless Night, which is what I really should be recommending, but I just can't. A pretty spooky one. But then the most spooky of all of Agatha Christie's books, in my opinion, is unquestionably And Then There Were None. This one is by far and away the one that has the most atmosphere to it. All of these people, this is an isolated closed circle mystery, and you guys know I love those, but it is the granddaddy of them all because it's the most... It's very psychological. Maybe that's kind of what I'm getting at too with Crooked House, is that it's not, part of the menace is not even just the fact that people are kind of trapped together in one way or another. There's also this kind of element of psychological terror or predation that's happening in both Crooked House and Then There Were None, but definitely even more so in Then There Were None. They're also trapped on this island with no way out, so that makes it even creepier. And yeah, just in general, I think this is definitely the book that I feel like is most autumnal in terms of its sort of mood, so it's definitely my number one pick I would give you for fall, even though Halloween Party is probably a little bit more like on season or on theme. This one to me in terms of overall atmosphere feels more fall. Okay, next we move to winter. And when I think of like a typical winter mystery, I'm obviously thinking snow, because I think snow is something that a lot of mysteries use to great effect because it creates often sort of a sense of isolation. Broken record here, you guys know I love that in a mystery. I think it really adds to the sense of terror, feeling like you're trapped together with folks. And there's actually 3 books that Agatha Christie has that fits that pretty darn well. So the first is the SITTAFORD mystery, which I don't have a physical copy of, but I really like this one. This one is a lot about snow in terms of both the overall setting, but also the plot. So I 100% think that it evokes the wintry mood very well. In terms of pure, like, on the seasonalness, Hercule Poirot's Christmas is very clearly seasonally appropriate. It is set over Christmas time. It is set at a English country house over Christmas, and there is a real wintry vibe. I wouldn't say that the winteriness necessarily impacts the plot directly, but I do think it contributes to the overall mood. So again, just because this is one that is very clearly set during the season in question, I feel like we have to go to this one. I'm recommending a few Hercule Poirot's. Poirot is a series that I think you can read really in any order. There's not really much you're gonna like spoil for yourself. I think that there's a couple of books that allude to solutions in others, but you know, aside from that, I think you can read them pretty much in any order. So that one definitely is directly on theme. And then last but not least, and actually the one that I think is the most wintry and the one I would recommend the most, is Murder on the Orient Express. Not a very original recommendation here, but this is about a train that gets snowed in and somebody dies, and Hercule Poirot has to figure out what has caused that death to happen. Again, because it basically functions as an isolated closed circle mystery, I think that adds to the overall sense of dread, which is, again, something I associate sort of with wintry type reads where it's dark outside and everybody's kind of getting cabin fever together. This one definitely evokes that. So even though Hercule Poirot's Christmas is more like on brand or on theme, this is my number one recommendation for winter. Okay, next we come to spring, and this is the one that I had the hardest time sort of nailing down what I thought a spring-like book is. And I guess where I kind of landed is I think of spring as a more lighthearted time. It's often associated with sort of like new love or romance, but basically it's sort of like, oh God, we've all been cooped up together all winter. Finally, we're getting out into the sunshine again. And there's a sort of maybe kind of a lighter tone, a more lighthearted approach to a book. So in terms of a murder mystery, my thought here was either Agatha Christie's that do have a much lighter tone and are more on her sort of action-adventure-y type thing, or books that have a prominent theme of romantic love. So my runner-up, I didn't ultimately pick it, but I thought I'd just shout out Sparkling Cyanide, because I do think this one has some really interesting romantic relationship dynamics in it. So that's my runner-up, but I thought it was a little too maudlin to really be appropriate. So I've picked 3, and actually I know which one I think is my number one recommendation. So first, in terms of a one, I picked ones that were sort of earlier in Christie's career, because I do think that in the 20s and 30s she has a very light, like kind of jovial tone to some of her books. So I picked an early Poirot. I picked Lord Edgware Dies, just because this is set in kind of the London West End theater scene. So there's a lot of sort of lighthearted people or sort of frivolous people around in this one. So I thought maybe sort of the hijinks of the theater might make this a little bit lighter in tone. And again, it's earlier in her career where she tends to have even more sort of a spunky lightness of touch to her writing. Then I thought the 13 Problems, which is a Miss Marple short story collection. And first of all, I just love this because I think it really kind of plays to Marple's strengths, but something, again, lighter to read because these are short stories. It's a little easier to get through. And because these are short stories, there's not a lot of sort of like in-depth, like emotions that are usually evoked. It's much more of sort of like a mystery puzzle, very much focused on figuring out the clue and solving the puzzle of what has happened. So I think that this has got a little bit lighter of a tone. Her short stories usually do. And this is one of my favorite short story collections. Is this my favorite? This is probably my favorite short story collection of hers. So I thought that this might be a good choice for spring. And then finally, I recommend the Bundle duology. So the character's name is Bundle, and the first one we find her in is The Secret of the Chimneys. My personal favorite is the Seven Dials mystery, which is the second one. And these are my two favorite of her sort of action adventure-y ones from the 20s. And Tommy and Tuppence would do well for this as well, I think. And also they are a romantic couple, so there you go. Bundle does find romance over the course of her two books. But basically, I just think like it's just sort of like the gay young things of the 20s, like very lighthearted, kind of very Jolly Japes type of a vibe. And yeah, I think that this is sort of the lightest tone Christie evokes. And I personally really like them. I know they're not everybody's favorites. Another one that some people like, I've not read this one yet, so I can't recommend it, but I've heard that The Man in the Brown Suit is the best of this type of book she has from this era. Possibly. I personally just really like the two ones with Bundle, so I would recommend The Secret of the Chimneys and the Seven Dials mystery as your best pick for spring. Okay, and then coming into summer, rounding it out, this is another kind of theme that's a little easier for me to wrap my head around, because I think in my mind very clearly when I think summer, I think like a hot setting, and I think you know, travel and vacation, things like that. And she has 4 books that I think fit that pretty well. The one that I'm not including is Murder in Mesopotamia, which I still personally really like, but it's definitely the weakest of the 4 that I thought fit this the best. So first I'll start with Evil Under the Sun. And I should mention all 3 of these are Hercule Poirot ones. So is Murder in Mesopotamia for that matter. But Evil Under the Sun is set at a holiday like resort kind of thing on the English Riviera. I think it's in Cornwall. And it's definitely got a lot of beachy atmosphere, like that actually plays a major part of both the setting and some of the plot stuff that happens. They, you know, definitely spend time like boating, sunbathing, things like that. It's definitely got a very summery vibe to it. And this is all 3 of the ones I'm going to mention are some of her very best work. So it's also just like a really good book. The next one I picked was Appointment with Death. Now, I could have actually picked this for fall because in terms of that sense of like creepy menace, this definitely has that. But because it's set in Jordan, it's set in the Middle East, it's a huge part of this book is sort of the oppressive heat. So I felt like that kind of knocked it out of the running for fall. But again, this is set in the Middle East, so you just get that hot weather. A lot of what this book is about is people like trying to stay cool. So I definitely think that this fits an overall summer vibe. And then finally, the number 1 recommendation I would have for summer would definitely be Death on the Nile. This is one of her very, very best books. For one thing, it's an easy one to recommend to people. There's a great adaptation of it, a couple of pretty good adaptations actually. And I think that this is just perfect for summer because it's set in Egypt, so it definitely has like the hot vibe, but then it's also a bunch of people on vacation. And then somebody dies on a boat. So, I mean, it's in the title, Death on the Nile. So yeah, anyway, this one is definitely the number one that I have for summer. So that would mean my number 1 pick for fall is And Then There Were None. My number 1 pick for winter is Murder on the Orient Express. My number 1 pick for spring are the Bundle action adventure ones, so The Secret of the Chimneys and the Seven Dials mystery. And then my number 1 pick for summer is Death on the Nile. So there you go. Like I said, this was a requested video, so I hope I fit the request. And I hope I gave you guys some ideas of Christie's that you can read at different times of year, and especially for fall, since we are coming into fall. I obviously think that Agatha Christie is a great thing to read year round, but you know, I guess I can see where people are coming from in terms of she does have slightly different moods in some of her books that may be suited to different seasons better than others if you are somebody who is a seasonal reader. So anyway, let me know what you think of my recommendations. If you think that there's another one that would work well for a particular season, definitely let me know that below. And besides that, I think that will do it for me for right now. So if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all of that information listed in the description box below, and I think that that will do it. I hope you guys are having an absolutely lovely day, and I will just talk to you soon. Bye.